I'm sweating like crazy. I wear jackets in every single one of my videos, and I'm finally not wearing a jacket and I'm sweating now. I have another scary story for you guys. I don't know why I had to get really close to the camera to say that. This is actually the finale to a series that I've been reading over the past couple of weeks. Actually, it's probably been months at this point, but this is the finale to I Wanted a Job But Was Given a Nightmare. So thank you, TEAYUH, for continuing to write such amazing stories. She wrote the finale for it, and I'm actually kind of sad because I don't want the story to end. I will have her link down below, as well as the first two parts to the story, so that you guys can catch up if you haven't seen those ones. But without further ado, this is the finale to I Wanted a Job But Was Given a Nightmare. I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I'm honestly not even sure I should go by Cher anymore at this point. I'm now a shell of my former self. I don't even recognize the girl in the mirror who stares back at me with a blank expression. I'm back in Whately, Massachusetts now. After the fire and Helen's death, I went back home. The firemen and policemen who brought me to safety located my car by my license plate. They didn't really question me on what happened, as the investigation ended quickly with an electrical error supposedly being the cause of the fire. I know that's not the case. I had been missing for a few days, and with no call to my work, I ended up getting fired anyways. My parents thought I had another meltdown and tried to get me to go to the doctor again, but I refused. Pills wouldn't be able to help me, and I never told them about the fire. They weren't notified by the police because I'm no longer a minor, and asked the police not to. I'm thankful they didn't. I was back at my house, sitting on my bed while wearing the necklace, and wanted to let you guys know what I found. I did some digging, like some really deep research, and now it all makes sense. The cult that Helen told me about, the Divina Survey, was the same one that inhabited the Lataf. It was their first location. The abandoned building in Helen's story was their last. It's all tied together in some fucked up way. And that's not all. I researched Abatu as well. First, Abatu, the demonic fury, came up, and I knew that wasn't fucking right, so I had to go further. Abatu, an earth-bound form of destructive, negative energy in the Order of the Nine Angels, associated with rites of sacrifice. A satanic and left-hand path occult group based in the United Kingdom, but with affiliate groups in various other parts of the world. The Divina Survey must have been one of the affiliated groups. Yet it said the Order of the Nine Angels wasn't formed until the mid-1900s, so how would that be possible? I had to go even further into this. I stayed up until 5 a.m. that night. I was used to hardly getting any sleep, so it didn't really affect me much. I didn't have that much time to organize everything into detail or write down my sources, but I did make a timeline of my information. The Divina Survey formed in 1881 in Williamsburg, Massachusetts. In 1886, the Divina Survey bought land in Hatfield, Massachusetts, using it to build a 2-story building, designed like an inn, to properly hold their members and their members' families. 4 years later, the Divina Survey lost many members and had to relocate to an old factory in Burlington, Vermont due to debt. In early 1894, the building caught fire, leaving only 3 members, including the leader, alive. After that, the cult disbanded and never resurfaced again. In the 1960s, the daughter of one of the 3 survivors discovered her father's secret past. He had moved to England after the fire under a new name and settled down to raise a family. She became fascinated and soon formed a group that would be later known as the Order of the Nine Angels. The founder of the Order of the Nine Angels ended up leaving England and relocating to Massachusetts once a new leader for the group took over in the 1970s. It is said that her descendants are the rightful leaders to the Order of the Nine, but her only child, a son, wanted nothing to do with the group and changed his last name. And it's rumored her son ended up having a child right before she passed away, but no legal documentation has ever been found. Though this information provided me with a better understanding of my situation's history, it didn't give me what I wanted, what I needed, Abatu's weaknesses. I'm not even sure if I can hurt a demon, let alone kill him, since it was never really alive in the first place. I decided that online research was only going to get me so far, and questioning those in the Order of the Nine Angels wasn't an option because they were mainly based in England, and I didn't have the money to go over there. Hell, I didn't even have time to shoot them an email and wait for a response. I had to end this thing as soon as possible, before it hurt anyone else, and before the sudden courage I had mustered up faded away. I would need to go to a pure source who would have some time of experience with dark entities, if not demons. And that's how I ended up at the front steps of my childhood church. Looking up at the old structure brought back so many memories. My mother forcing us all to go every Sunday. My brother and I playing hide and seek with the other kids in the bushes next to the welcome sign. My father singing the hymns completely out of tune. I should have appreciated it all a little bit more back then. The once fading white paint was now newly glossed over, making the whole church look 100 years younger. The sun rays snuck through the branches of the 2 birch trees standing to the right, causing the beautiful stained glass windows to stand out more than usual. The large green doors also seemed to have a new coat of paint on them, but the older wooden doorknobs remained the same. I never thought I'd come back here after 10 years to seek help from my old pastor on how to get rid of a demon. With a deep breath, I pulled the heavy door open, stepping inside as it creaked shut behind me. The giant organ built into the back wall was still as intimidating as ever. The carpets were still a navy blue color, and the pews still had red cushions to sit in every row. I immediately felt out of place, but continued forward, looking around for Pastor Jim Warren. I wondered if he would even recognize me after all of these years. A door creaking open brought me out of my thoughts, and I turned towards where the sound was coming from. Pastor Warren was coming in from the dining hall in the back. His head was down, nose buried in a book. I couldn't get a good look at his face, but his balding head and long protruding nose that held his thick frame glasses filled me with familiarity. He was wearing his white robe, which hung just above his ankles. He would have passed right by me without any idea that I was there if I hadn't cleared my throat. He immediately looked up with wide eyes and closed his book, his startled expression quickly turning into a welcoming smile. My, it's Cher! I haven't seen you in years, little lady. His old nickname for me caused me to chuckle, and I stepped forward to give him a hug. I felt truly safe for the first time in forever. Maybe I could just live here. So, what brings you to my second home? Pastor Warren asked. I suddenly felt like I was being interrogated, and my face flushed with heat. I know I haven't been here in so long, but I've run into some trouble, and I think I need your help. My voice was barely above a whisper, and I couldn't control my stutter. It was more than obvious that I was a fucking nervous wreck. Pastor Warren's smile fell off of his face, and he was now staring at me with disappointment, seriousness, and, I think, pity. Is this about what happened 3 years ago at the Latoff? I slowly nodded my head. I wanted to break eye contact as I felt too vulnerable in this position, but I felt too ashamed to look away. The pastor let out a heavy sigh before raising his eyebrows, turning on his heel, beginning to walk in the other directions towards the basement door. Follow me. We were sat at a plain white table now. The basement lights didn't offer very much, but it was enough. Boxes surrounded the walls that surrounded us, and the air was thick with a musty smell. I couldn't help but cough every few moments. And now, I really did feel like I was being interrogated. Pastor Warren sat across from me. His hands folded in front of him, and his serious expression hadn't changed. So, I'm sure you know that by now, the experience you and your friends had at the Latoff wasn't normal, he stated. Wow, he hit the nail right on the head, because it sure as hell was anything but normal. Yes, I do know that. I knew that from the beginning. That's why we went to the Latoff in the first place. We were, I guess you could say, investigating, but we had no idea what we were messing with, I explained, leaning back a bit to try and ease the tension I felt. But as I leaned back, the pastor leaned forward. I couldn't escape his stare. And what were you messing with? I swallowed the breath that I had been holding and inhaled deeply. A demon? Pastor Warren nodded his head and sat back once again. His movement somehow lifted the weight that I felt I was barreling down on my chest, and my breathing pattern returned to normal. How could people confess their sins to these guys all the time? I could barely get the truth out. I assume you have come to me for guidance because I'm a pastor. Yes, I said. We were all fine until a month ago. It came back, and it took Peter and Chris, just like it took Jess. And it tried to take me, but this old lady named Helen saved me, and she related to me. She dealt with the same demon before, and she gave me this necklace as protection. I motioned towards the necklace fastened around my neck. He leaned forward again, inspecting the pendant with his eyes before his face twisted up and he quickly sat back. You're being hunted by a Batu. He wasn't asking me. He knew. I know. Oh my goodness. Pastor Warren stood up and began to pace back and forth, mumbling words so fast that I couldn't understand. Pastor Warren, I'm desperate. What do I do? I'm not here for protection. I'm covered on that, but I need to know how to kill this thing, how to destroy it. He stopped pacing and turned to me, laughing a bit. Cher, you can't kill a demon. That's beyond us. We can't kill what's beyond us. But there has to be something that I can do. I stood up, my hands clenched into fists at my sides in an attempt to show him that I meant business. I can't just sit around and continue to do nothing like I have been for 3 years. I lost my best friend. I lost my brother. I lost Helen, and I won't lose anybody else. I have to get justice. I can't let this happen to anyone else. Help me, just please help me. Pastor Warren seemed to go into deep thought from my outburst. It was quiet for several minutes before he spoke up. After everything you've witnessed and everything you've lost, You still want to challenge that thing? Are you out of your mind? I shrugged, stepping away from the table and up to him so that we were now face to face, our noses almost touching. Pastor, I don't know what you've seen. I don't know what you've done. I don't know what you've witnessed, but what I've gone through the past month, let alone the past 3 years, has been utter hell. I can withstand it a little bit longer. I want this. No, I need this. I need your help. Just give me something I can work with. I can do this alone. You don't have to come with me, but I need some kind of guidance. I've tried some research on my own, but it only gave me basics. I need to find Abatu's weaknesses. There has to be something that you know that I don't that can help me bring this thing down. I stared into his eyes, not even blinking once as I spoke. He stared back, challenging me, trying to get me to back down and give up. I know he was concerned for me. I was concerned for me, but I saw no other way out of this. His stare held for a few seconds before his shoulders slumped in defeat, and he shook his head. You can't tell anyone I helped you. If you did, I'd lose my job. I nodded in understandment. I won't. I promise. The pastor seemed to debate on whether or not to actually continue with telling me what he knew. His decision ended in my favor. You have to burn them down. What? I don't understand. Burn what down? What was he talking about? The building. Anything that keeps it attached to this world. You have to destroy it. You have to burn it to the ground. I have to burn the Lataf? Isn't that arson? That's against the law. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So that's why he didn't want to be tied to this? Not only to save his reputation as a pastor, but also to avoid a criminal record. Pastor Warren nodded his head. Worry and sadness shone clearly on his face. It was at that moment we knew that if my fate hadn't already been sealed in the spirit world, it was now sealed in the human world. My parents, they were going to lose both kids. I told myself no matter what, I had to stick to my word. I took a shaky breath before offering Pastor Warren a half-hearted smile. And so the hunted becomes the hunter. I cut off all contact with Pastor Warren after that, and I cut off all contact with my parents. I smashed my phone into pieces and my laptop soon followed. I packed a bag full of clothes for myself and anything else I would need for my, I guess you could say, mission. Matches, cotton, lighters, flashlights, batteries, a pocket knife. The list went on with small necessities. I knew by now that destroying everything Abatu was attached to not only included the Lataf, but also the abandoned factory in Burlington, Vermont. So I'd have to be up for some traveling. I stopped at the Lataf first. Luckily, nobody was staying there that night, and I waited long enough for the staff members working the day to leave. I knew that after this, there was no turning back, so I didn't bother to wear gloves or cover up my tracks in sheer detail. I did park a few streets away though, just in case. I brought a full gas can with me, along with rope, matches, a lighter, a flashlight so I could see what I was doing. I entered through the back wooden door that led to the basement, having picked the lock and made my way to the master. It felt as if I was stepping back in time. The atmosphere felt as uneasy as ever, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up, unsurprisingly. I knew it was close. Abatu was close. This caused me to smirk as the pendant around my neck swayed with each step I took. It would have to watch as I burned its prize down, as I stripped its power away. I knew that it knew why I was here. Pride filled me from head to toe. It was a pleasure to burn. That quote from the novel Fahrenheit 451 had never rang truer in history until this very moment. I drenched the master in gasoline, as well as the hallway connecting to the rest of the rooms. I lit several matches and threw them about randomly before quickly making my way to a lower room window I had left open and jumping out, taking the gas cans with me for my next target. The similar screams filled the air, black mist dissipating into the night as flames danced in my victory. I looked behind my shoulder as I walked the streets, catching a glimpse of the blinding white eyes now and then. I'd lie if I said I didn't feel a pang of guilt. The building had so much history that the town cherished, and now it would all be wasted away into ash. People would lose their jobs, their vacationing spots, and Dale would lose his main source of income. I was potentially destroying a few lives to save more. I couldn't let the same thing that happened to me happen to others. I was sorry things had to be this way, but I wasn't. I got in my car soon after, driving away just in time. I watched the news later that night. The police and firemen had arrived 20 minutes later, but the Lataf was too far gone by the time they got there. An investigation would be held, but I wouldn't be there to hear the results. I'd be in Vermont by the next morning. Thankfully, traveling to Burlington wasn't as long of a drive as the last time I had been in Vermont. Granted, I was driving ridiculously slow on the right lane of the highway back then, and when I got to Burlington, it was then that I realized I had no fucking clue where this building was. All I could remember was what the building looked like, and that Helen told me it was in Burlington, but she never told me an address, and I'd forgotten to research it before leaving Massachusetts. That's how I wound up lost in Burlington. Well, not lost. I just had no idea where the hell I was going, or how to get to where I needed to go. After circling downtown for a few minutes, I decided to park on a side street near the public library. Maybe it would be able to offer me some much-needed information. Deciding to ask a local was out of the question, as I didn't want anybody asking why I was looking for an abandoned building, and then that same building going up in flames a few hours later. People would talk, and I wanted to stay as low-key as possible. I walked through the front door, clutching my bag close as I offered the librarian a small smile and a nod, continuing on my way, shelves upon shelves of books. I found myself in the town records section and began to rummage through some records. I was there for hours. Before I knew it, it was 15 minutes until the library closed, and I was no closer to finding the address of this building. I groaned and rested my forehead on the table, squeezing my eyes shut. "This blows," I whispered to myself. "Well, honey, I'd imagine it would be since you've been searching for something for a long time. We're about to close, and it seems you're still no closer to finding what you're looking for than when you stepped in here. Would you like some help?" A sweet and soft-sounding voice filled my ears, and I felt someone touch my shoulder. I raised my head slowly and looked towards the person talking to me. It was the librarian I had passed earlier. Her hair was tied up in a high bun, with some gray streaks showing here and there. Her deep brown eyes seemed to bore into mine, but the wrinkles that surrounded them seemed to calm me in a strange way. She wore cheap, dark purple lipstick, and no other trace of makeup could be spotted on her face. Her plain white summer dress hugged her body a little bit too tight. I was looking for some old building records. I had hesitated for a moment, not wanting to give too much information. The librarian pressed no further, only nodded her head and motioned for me to follow her. I was up in an instant. That was easier than I thought. We stopped in the middle of the public records section, and she picked out a large, century-old-looking leather-backed book, handing it to me. "Here you go, hun. This might be able to help you in your search. Good luck. You've got 10 minutes. That's all she needed to say. I raced back to the table I was occupying, almost tripping over my seat to get the book open. I was flipping through pages so quickly, I ended up getting at least 2 or 3 paper cuts on my finger. It was me against the clock, and I won. "Fuck yes!" I shouted, jumping out of my seat. My eyes went wide, and I immediately covered my mouth, earning a glare from the librarian. She pointed at the clock. Only 5 more minutes. I mouthed a sorry and sat back down. It was off an old dirt road connecting with Kerrigan Drive. I went to reach into my bag to pull out my phone for directions, but then realized I had destroyed it a few days before. Cursing at myself in my head, I got up, slung my bag over my shoulder, and made my way over to the librarian's desk. She looked up at me with a raised eyebrow. "Did you find what you were looking for?" she asked. "Yes," I nodded. "But I seem to have forgotten the charger for my phone, and it died. Would it be possible to ask you for directions?" "Sure. What do you need directions for?" I sucked in a quiet breath. Doing this could easily tie me back to my future actions by authorities, but it's all I could do in such a short period of time. "Kerrigan Drive," I said. "Out of curiosity, may I know why you need directions there?" She reached for a pen and piece of paper, peering at me with a pointed look. Well, shit. I had to come up with a lie, and a really good one, even though it was on the spot. I'm a foster kid, and I found records of my parents. They died in a car accident when I was a baby, but I managed to trace my mom's parents back to Burlington. I was given a picture of the last place they lived a long time ago, but I never got the address. That's why I came looking here." I gave her a fake smile, praying that she wouldn't ask any further questions. She held the directions in her hand on a folded piece of paper. Her arm halfway stretched out to me, but she paused at my explanation. She was contemplating on giving me the paper. I swear I was sweating bullets, but to my luck, I think she bought my lie because she handed the paper over. "Here you go. Now the library's closed, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I gave her a genuine smile this time and didn't think twice before walking out of the door into my car. Getting in, I opened up the folded piece of paper and placed it on my passenger seat. I read it over a couple times before pulling out onto the street and heading on my way. The drive was suspenseful, at least mentally. I felt adrenaline rushing through my veins and my heart rate picking up quite fiercely. I couldn't believe I made it there. I couldn't believe I made it this far. The old chair would have shit her pants at the thought of what I was about to do. It felt good. So damn good. I pulled up to the abandoned building 10 to 15 minutes later. I kept my headlights on, pointed towards the building, having parked my car on the overgrown front lawn. I sat in silence for a while. just sitting there and staring at the giant piece of brick with a history of misery. I even spotted the small graveyard poking out from the back of the building, including a few headstones that had been knocked over by Helen's friend Randy all those years ago. I shook my head to keep my thoughts focused. I needed to do this smoothly without attracting any attention, yet the building was surrounded by a heavily wooded area, but you could still see some lights from the city through the part of the tree line. I gathered my needed materials from the back seat and made my way over, using my headlights and my flashlight to guide my way. I decided not to go into the building as it had been empty and unkempt for years, and could be unstable. I poured the gasoline around the exterior of the building and broke some windows. I then followed with lighting matches and throwing them inside the building, saving the outside for last, as it would bring more attention. Only a minute or two had passed in this process before I heard the screams, and that similar feeling of triumph filled me. It knew. It knew I was going to win. Abatu was pissed, and its anger only helped fuel the flames. They grew larger and higher inside as the screams inched closer. The flames reached the ceiling now. I didn't have much time before somebody would notice and call 911. I quickly scattered the lit matches about the perimeter of the building and drew back a couple yards just in case. I didn't want to burn too. The screams were on top of me now, and I scanned the area for the eyes, stopping when I noticed that they were visible through the flames inside of the building. It underestimated me. Everyone underestimated me. As I turned to make my way back to my car, a newfound confidence in my step, I caught the blur of motion from the corner of my eye. A large weight tackled me to the ground, and I fell forward with a gasp. My hands able to catch my fall, but I winced as a few sharp rocks dug into my palms. Before I could even register what was happening, the same force grabbed me by the shoulder and flipped me onto my back, a bright light shining into my eyes. I raised my hands to shield my face as my eyes adjusted to the light, realizing a person was now standing in front of me with a flashlight in my face. My eyes widened in shock. Oh shit. I was caught. Someone caught me, and now I was going to be sent to jail as they held me there and waited for the police to come. With a heavy sigh, I raised myself onto my elbows and angled my head back to get a better look at my captor. Might as well see who this person is. But when they moved the flashlight away, I got a clear view. I felt my heart stop and my blood run cold. Jess? That can't be the end. That is absolutely not the finale. I hate you, TEAYUH, because you're getting me so addicted to your fucking stories. You can't end the story there. I don't think I've ever been so invested in a no-sleep story in my entire life. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. Thankfully, traveling... and made my way over to